Good morning. Welcome to Struggles of the Spirit. I'm your host and interviewer, the Reverend Lee Udell. I'm glad you tuned in to us again. I'm more and more discovering that there are a lot of you out there who enjoy this program, and we have no way to know who is watching and listening except when I run across you in the street or you tell me at a restaurant that you know the program. Phone in, though. We would like you to do that at 12:15. It gives us a chance to have some direct, immediate feedback, particularly with our guest, be able to talk with you. Today we're pursuing our conversations and investigation of a person's interior life. And I have an old friend and a guest here today, Sister Lucille Bonvelour, who's a Sister of Mercy, living here in the Burlington area. And she's going to talk about what is it about her own unique spiritual life that makes her worldview different. I think you'll find it interesting. Sister Lucille was influential in our COTS organization and really getting off the ground well here in Burlington. And she's a very forward-looking person, and I think she will turn your wheels and challenge your thinking, and I hope you'll phone in and talk with her at 12:15 today. At that time, we'll have the phone number for a phone-in displayed on the screen, and you invite your call. So welcome.
Good morning.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, as I said, it's been a long time. It's since we've worked together on anything, and it's just like yesterday. So the subject was how is your own personal spiritual faith unique? Your worldview. How is it? How are they connected? The reason why as you probably know anyway, but why I use the word your spiritual worldview rather than religious worldview, speaking of religion in the broad sense, is because it seems the public identifies religion with institutionalism, particularly in its most repressive form, no matter what the religious institution might be. That there's a lot of negative association with the word religion these days, and so the popular world has picked up the word spiritual instead, and that's fine with me. I'm perfectly happy to go with that, and so that's why I'm using that term. So, well, tell us about how your spiritual worldview has led you to your perspective.
I think, Lee, part of my reality is that in many ways I cannot separate my spiritual worldview from all the things that have impacted my life, from the very fact that I am white, female, grew up, born and raised on a farm, to parents of French-Canadian heritage, to the fact, to my schooling, to my life experiences, and more recently, and part of that growing up was growing up in a Roman Catholic tradition. And then more recently, I like to think of it as recent, but really now close to 40 years as a Sister of Mercy, where I've hopefully have imbibed the spirit of our foundress, Catherine Macaulay, who founded us in Dublin, Ireland, back in 1831. And before that, she had actually founded a house for women where she used her own resources to do that, and discovered she was living with, she wanted to live with other women and work on behalf of people who live in poverty. And she could not do that, she discovered, without becoming a religious congregation of women. And
so she did not only start the Sisters of Mercy, she was a Sister of Mercy herself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in those days, that housing was for the working poor girls. So today, as we are, as Sisters of Mercy embark on housing efforts, it's in that same spirit and tradition. Now, you say, well, what about your spirituality? In some ways, it's a struggle between what happens within, but if I find that if I don't live that, if there's no practice of what's inside, then I might as well not have a spirituality.
One needs to follow the other.
They need to. It's a both and. It's a both and. Maybe get me back on track, Lee.
Well, what you've told us a lot already. I guess you began by saying that what's unique about your worldview is the fact that, like each one of us, we're all unique, each person. And if we don't realize that each one of us is unique, male or female, Irish or French, Canadian, Roman Catholic, or Chinese, we're not in touch with reality. We are unique. We're not all the same. And I guess that's one thing that you recognize and value, it sounds like. And I would guess, knowing you a little bit over the years, that your ministry has been built on that principle.
And I think one of the key, something I've discovered more recently, is that the more one is in touch with one's history, and sometimes the history that's hidden from us, and I'm speaking now of things like one's ethnicity, how much being white and female is very different from being male, from more than the obvious.
Sure.
And how much being white is so much privilege compared to people of color. And those awarenesses cause me, I think, to stop and ask questions, and at least be open to questions, to expressions of oppression in our world, and as opposed to resisting. And those moments of awarenesses really, I think, for me, are moments of experiencing the holy. And so I am really grateful for the countless experiences I've had that have helped to bring whatever awarenesses I may have to this moment, knowing that there's so much more that I need yet to learn and to discover about the sacred and about life experience and where I can meet this God, this sacred, this experience of what is holy and sacred. One of the things that I do think has influenced me a fair amount is something that we as Sisters of Mercy call our direction statement, and something that I hope that not only I, but that every Sister of Mercy really tries to live out of. And I think in part I'd like to share it with the viewers.
What would that be?
Well, I'm going to read it because some of it gets a little long, not terribly long.
Is it the same for everyone?
The Sisters of Mercy, it's the direction statement for the Institute of the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas, which came into existence in 1991 when all units of the Sisters of Mercy from across the Americas came together and refounded. It was a refounding moment. We had been in existence some since 1831. That was in Ireland, but here in the States from the later 1800s. And we decided that it really made a lot of sense for us. We were collaborating in a lot of different ways on different projects, and we said, well, why this separateness? Why not come together as one?
Would this be North and South America?
That's correct.
And Central America?
That's right. Okay. Absolutely. I believe we're in 12 countries. In addition, there are Sisters of Mercy that belong to other institutes, so we really are around the world, but the Institute of the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas are in 12 countries, and so the whole multicultural reality is a particular challenge to us. But this is our direction statement, and this was first adopted in 1991 and then altered just slightly in 95. Animated by the gospel and Catherine Macaulay's passion for the poor, we, the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas, are impelled to commit our lives and resources to act in solidarity with the economically poor of the world, especially women and children, women seeking fullness of life and equality in church and society, one another as we embrace our multicultural and international reality. This commitment will impel us to develop and act from a multicultural international perspective, speak with a corporate voice, work for systemic change, act in harmony and interdependence with all creation, and call ourselves to continual conversion in our lifestyle and ministries. So, I mean, this is no small challenge.
No, it's very challenging.
And I think this is something that will be with us for a very long time, as we try to live more deeply this direction statement. And I think every few years the focus may change, but this is it.
Did it have a lot of grassroots in its influence in its creation, or was it more provincial?
I would say there was a fair amount of grassroots, so when we're talking now about maybe 6,000, currently just under 6,000 women, obviously in what we call chapters, which are governing bodies. Not everyone can participate be in the same room at the same time, so we had delegates. Mm-hmm. However, from my experience here in Vermont, we had our own mission statement, and when we received this, and we had representatives at this chapter, the similarities between our Vermont expression and the Institute's expression were amazingly similar. Mm. So I think the hearts of mercy, wherever we are, in my experience to date, are pretty similar. Mm-hmm. Not to say that we are not unique characters, but I do think in our guts, where probably it really counts, and in our hearts, we're together.
I'm really moved by your statement. I want to give you a difficult task in relationship to it, though. And I've had some long-term friendships with some Anglican religious communities, and they were the old-fashioned style where the goal is to somewhat obliterate the sister's individual unique personality under obedience, mm-hmm. But not to bring forth the resources that God has given each person in the community, but instead to somehow come up with a stereotypical idea of what a sister is, and mm-hmm. then every sister is supposed to be like that. In my experience, it doesn't work very well, and it sounds like you don't even look at that at all, that kind of style of being a sister. Do you want to reflect a little bit about that?
Well, I think at least in the Roman Catholic Church, sisters, and because that's my only experience, mm-hmm. Religious communities in the 60s began to change dramatically. I entered the Sisters of Mercy in 1960 at the age of 18, and that was a very much more structured life. Mm-hmm. And I, at that point, did not expect that I would ever go home to mm-hmm. see my parents.
That's the way it used to be.
That's the way, and I understood that. While I may not have liked it, I understood that to be a part of the experience. I was in the old habit. Mm-hmm. But then there was something called Vatican II.
I've heard about that.
And I think women in religious communities really ran with the results of Vatican II. And whether, I think it was a whole combination of things that I'm not sure I can even articulate mm-hmm. Most of them. But I do think that there was new excitement. I think our leaders were open to following and pursuing theologically. I mean, mm-hmm. we got ourselves updated. Mm-hmm. We got ourselves educated. Mm-hmm. All of those things made a real difference. Well, once the doors are open, then you begin to move from a structure that probably was repressive. Mm-hmm. It denied your uniqueness.
Yeah, it did.
And so now we move to an era where it was good to recognize one's abilities, one's unique contribution, one's limitations as well. I mean, all of those in combination.
Sure.
And I think that was a really key time for us. And then it just unfolds. And this is a very different perspective. I think I'm thinking now of growth, whether it's the growth of a child and the natural development stages that we all go through from the moment we're born to the moment we die. And I'm thinking about my experience at COTS and thinking of COTS as an organization and realizing that while I was a part of the organization, we went through a variety of developmental stages. And I think that certainly happened in religious communities and in to all of us. We grew up, so to speak, both personally and congregationally.
I would suppose that, and I hope some of our viewers will really phone in, that that there'll be some people who would say, well, this kind of sister that you, Sister Bonvalor, represent, isn't what I grew up thinking of what a sister was like. And
that's absolutely true. I'm sure that's true. It's not what I grew up with.
Oh, well, I have a friend who was a Roman Catholic sister. She's no longer one. She said she really believed, and she claimed she was taught, I don't know, I find it hard to believe, but maybe she was taught by some of her teachers, but that if you really want to know God, you must become a religious. You must join a religious community. You can't come to know God as a mother, as a wife, or as a husband, or as a wage earner, or as a father. The only way you can know God is to join a religious community. And
I mean, I would say that's the furthest thing from certainly my reality. I mean, I know countless people who find God and in their everyday lives, and I'm deeply moved by their spirituality and their sense of the holy. I don't, we have a unique way and a unique lifestyle.
Sure.
But I don't think we have the only corner on the block.
No. And one of the things why I like to have lunch with you one of these days and talk about religious life is that obviously I'm very much in favor of religious community, and that in some ways the way you represent it, particularly here today, and then in your own life, one could say, well, some women, speaking of a women's community right now, some women might want to sign on, not necessarily for permanent life vows, and see what happens. It might go that way, it might not, but other women and other men go to the Peace Corps for several years. They make a commitment for a number of years to serve, and it is a kind of a special community to be in the Peace Corps. I have never been in it, but what I'm saying is that if people began to think of, in some ways, the religious life as not being the way it was at one time, but to see it in the here and now, there might be a lot more people joining the religious life.
You know, I think, in fact, we have a couple of things that one of which has similarities to Vista or Peace Corps, and something we call Mercy Corps.
No, what's that?
Well, it's really a volunteer. It's an opportunity to volunteer for a year.
Really?
In a mercy setting. And so, you know, we do have those kinds of things. We also have an opportunity for people to be associates, people who want to be connected with us, who want some part, perhaps in our ministry, perhaps in our prayer, and really want to share those things with us. Both of those options are available, and it is an opportunity for women and men in both of these cases to learn more about mercy. And actually, in some cases, you know, women who may be a part of one or the other of these groups, though they're not the purpose for why they exist. Some women who are associates or who have participated in Mercy Corps do become vowed members of the community.
They've tried it and they liked it.
That's right.
Well, I don't know whether you and the members of your community go to sort of events like these. They used to have an event for graduating seniors in high school and also in college, where like IBM would come and talk about IBM as an employer, or GE as an employer, or all kinds of different corporations as employers. How about how about Sisters of Mercy?
We need to have one of my housemates here. She is on what we call the Vocation New Membership team, and where we have a team of 5 women from the Northeast who do vocation work or recruitment work, and who also helped in the formation of women who are new members to the community. So they really that group tries to figure out how best to get the word out, where to be present. I don't think they're going to these particular kind of job fair type things, but we have been at together with other religious communities. We have been at the Big E down in Springfield, Mass. You know, that's not where we spend tons of time, but that is a place where there's a lot of people, and you have to be where people are.
So what I'm trying to do is to challenge our viewers to think about religious communities in a different way than they perhaps grew up conceiving of them, and to see them as maybe there are some options for them. It's not just a strange thing that some weird people do, but something that
Thank you, Lee.
but it's something that could appeal to anyone. You know?
It could. And, you know, I think it is a challenge in today's world, where there are so many opportunities that were not available to us when I was growing up, for instance. It is a very different setting. My sense of, you know, the late 50s and the early 60s was when you graduated from high school, you knew who you were going to marry. If you weren't going to marry, you knew that you were going to enter a religious community. You know, I mean, those are kind of the options that were available to women in those days, and that's not reality today.
No?
I would, first of all, I would not encourage anyone to make a significant life choice, no matter what that is, at the age of 18.
No way. You hardly know yourself.
That's right. And plus the fact that there are opportunities like Peace Corps, Vista, and countless other things where you can spend some time. Mm. College is certainly much more common today than it was. Not an assumed thing that people would go to college, particularly women, even in 1960. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole different world, and so what is different, really? Why join a religious community when you can have all these? You can volunteer, you can give, you can also, should you choose, marry. You can participate in, if justice is your passion, you can be very involved with justice issues outside of religious community. So you say, then what's unique? Well, one of the things that's unique, I think, is that there is community. And the challenge,
you're working within a community.
Working within a community, and the challenge to the opportunity to be challenged by women with whom you live and work, and the opportunity to be supported by, and the opportunity to, as a group, make a difference. And I think for me today, one of the things that, why do I stay? And I think I always answer that these days with the difference that our united efforts can make, I think, are yet untapped. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why I was excited when we became one as Mercy. The potential for the impact on systemic change. If we really could figure it out, I think, I can't even begin to imagine the difference that could make. I just think it would be phenomenal if we could get our hands around that.
For sure. This is one of the questions I wanted to ask you, was where do you find the source for your vitality, your openness, your ability to live close with sisters without fighting?
Well, let's put this in a human context.
Well, in families, that's the most dangerous thing, is to live within a family.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so
it's not just sisters.
We certainly consciously work at resolving differences and to planning our future together. And really, I want to say pooling all our resources, and I don't mean only financial. Mm-hmm. I really mean our
your gifts,
all of our gifts, and using them for common purpose. And I think that when we understand that keeps us together and helps us through the times that may not be so wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I lost track of anything else I was going to say here, Lee.
Well, I was asking you, what is the source of your energy, of your vision, your love, your drive to care for the poor and for people in general? Where does it all come from?
Well, I think probably a combination of places. Some of those already identified. I think Catherine McCauley and her work is a really key player in my life. And I think a place that I get re-energized is when I go to nature and able to just kind of soak in the world around me and hope, soak in the world around me, whether it's the beauty or the devastation. And I think in those settings I can experience the sacred, and that's rejuvenating. I think the women that I live and work with provide help to sustain and energize me.
How about the Eucharist?
I think that's where I find Eucharist most lived, is in that day-to-day living of Jesus lives in my day-to-day life, and that's where I most experience Eucharist. Not saying that I don't experience Eucharist in the liturgy, but I do think that I see I always say I'm a realist and I'm practical. So I think some of those aspects of myself bring me to the point where in my day-to-day experiences of people, of nature, of whatever part of life, that's where I maybe can internalize Eucharist and experience Eucharist in a way that I cannot do that in
just in a service.
In a service.
You want to explain a little bit about that, because some of our viewers, I think I know what you mean, but some of our viewers may not, and they may equate Christ's presence only with the bread and the wine at the corporate worship, and not see Christ in other ways.
That's hard to. It's hard to begin to get a handle on.
I can assist if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
I think I hear you saying that Christ is everywhere, and he becomes seen physically in the bread and the wine at the Eucharist, but you also see him in the child, in the old person, in the widow, in the orphan, in the woman who's just finally done what she didn't think she could ever do. You see there are moments of grace that become apparent. Some people call them God moments.
Absolutely.
And that's, you're saying, that's Eucharist too.
That's Eucharist too. And as you were talking, I was just recalling, well, it's a song, but it's also, it's more than a song. I was remembering an album that I recently got called We Are the Body of Christ. And I mean, we have a day that we attribute to Corpus Christi, which is the body of Christ. And in a special way in that liturgy, in a special way in that album of music, it's trying to articulate that we are We are the only vehicle that Christ has to live in this world. So we are the hands and the eyes and the feet and the mouth of Christ. And so it's in that context, I think, that if I can't see Christ, if I can't see Jesus in my day-to-day world, then I mean, this may be too way out there, but in some ways, then I should not be present at the celebrated, you know, the mass, the prayer, the whatever. If I can't do that, if I can't carry that out in my lived reality, then of what good is it?
Well, in the Christian New Testament, Jesus talks about the last judgment, and he is confronting some people who on the last day of the universe, I guess you would say, at least of our universe, and he says, you weren't with me when I was naked. You weren't with me when I was hungry.
That's right.
You weren't with me when I was in prison. And the people say, well, what do you mean? We never saw you in those situations.
Exactly.
And Jesus said, if you don't see me in the least of these, your brothers and sisters, you don't see me.
That's right.
And that's what you're speaking of.
That's right. And I think... you know, I think that's why we cannot separate. I cannot separate anyway. My more formal religiosity from my lived reality. And perhaps that's also why, I mean, clearly, no matter who we are in this world, we are sisters and brothers. No matter how rich or how poor we are sisters and brothers. And because those among us who have less than I do are the most likely to be forgotten, it is there that, as I dare say, as a Christian, also as a sister of mercy, I am called to stand in solidarity, most especially with those groups.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Otherwise, you end up with a pious church-going that doesn't amount to a hill of beans.
That's correct. Yeah.
But if you receive the Eucharist and see Christ in your brother and sister everywhere, then it all fits together.
It fits together, absolutely.
There's something I want to ask you about a little bit. I haven't worked a lot with particularly the poor. As you know, I've worked with the sick and the ill, and the dying, children, people of all ages. But as a priest, I do sometimes work with people who are not middle class or educated, and I used to feel that I had a responsibility to people less privileged than I. But in recent years, I've come to a different understanding of that altogether, really. That I for my own soul's salvation, I need those people. It's that I need to recognize that I'm their brother and sister, and I need to behave with them in a brother and sister or sisterly fashion. A dear friend of mine, now deceased, said, each one of us is the beloved of God.
Yeah.
And if that dirty, unkempt, somewhat disreputable-looking character over there is my brother, is beloved of God, well, I better get to know him.
Yeah, and I can recall being profoundly touched one day when I was working at COTS, and I was headed to Montpelier, and in my car there was a man who had been in our shelters. I think at that particular point he was living in some Section 8 housing. And he looked at me and he said, "Take care of yourself, because I don't want what happened to me to happen to you."
He said that.
He said that to me. And I said, "What gift? What gift?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's discovering sometimes that people who are on the edge still have the ability to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an amazing gift and an amazing thing to discover. I have a friend who worked in Peru and now lives and works down on the Mexican-American border. And she often speaks about the hope of the hopeless, or the hope that comes from people who live in situations that to you and I would seem totally without hope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is a real gift, I think, that people can get, because I don't know about you, but I don't know how much I could live that much on the edge. I think that's a constant call to simplify, but that's a choice I make. It's not something imposed on me by my sheer existence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You may know him or know of him, Jean Vanier.
Yes.
I've never met him. I wish I have, but I've heard his voice on tapes and read some of his materials. And for our viewers who aren't familiar with him, he's founded the L'Arche communities, capital L apostrophe ARCHE, around the world, and these are communities for people who are emotionally and physically debilitated and unable to cope in ordinary society. And in these communities that he's founded, you're not institutionalized. You live like a person. Mm-hmm. And in fact, you don't even call them patients. You call them core members.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've been privileged to have visited a large community several times, and have eaten with these people and been with them. And this is what I was saying. I've just, maybe I'm not phrasing it right. I've discovered that I'm incomplete without them.
That's right. I think that's true.
It's not that because I've been more advantaged that I have a responsibility to share my goodies with them. No, it's much more than that.
Yes. Yeah.
It goes far beyond that. And it's hard to explain. Can you put it more clearly?
I'm not sure I can put it more clearly, but clearly, at least in my experience, I feel like I am changed because of the people I know, and including the people on the edge.
Yeah.
And a lot that I think about today. My dad has Alzheimer's, and I visit him in a local nursing home, and really the experience of discovering, of rediscovering this man is challenging, but it's doing something to me, and it's changing me and bringing gifts out in me that I didn't know I had. So in some ways, as terrible as this disease is, it is a gift to me, because I will be changed by this experience. And I think it's the same type of thing that happens. I think we do need these the experiences of people that are not, we don't think are like us.
That's our thought.
To challenge us and to discover something new in us, I think. I don't know if that begins to get at it.
Yes, I think you're addressing it.
Even every time I deal or am working with people that think very differently from myself, it's the same kind of challenge. How can I remain open? What is it that person has to teach me? And because it's not, as much as I may try to impose what I think and feel on someone, that's not going to work, number one. And it's not just about that. It's how can we listen to each other? How can we bring each other into being?
I need to interrupt you because it's time for our viewers to phone in. And we can pick up this some more because I like what you're saying. But please phone us. You have a special opportunity here today to talk with Sister Lucille Bonvelour, a Sister of Mercy here in Burlington. As you note from, I hope you note from our conversations this morning, she has a lot to offer. And you may have some specific things you've always wanted to ask a sister, but never had the courage to ask. Or
here's your moment.
Yes, here's your moment. And please phone in. This is the whole subject really is not just about sisters, it's about all of us human beings. So please phone us. The number here is displayed on the screen, and as soon as we hear you're on the phone, we'll stop talking and invite you to join us. So please call. We have until 12:30 for conversations with you.
5 minutes.
So I've gone a little bit longer than I should have. I got so caught up in our conversation. So I hope in 5 minutes, we have 5 minutes for feedback, that we'll have some people phoning in. There's scripture that says, eyes they have and they see not, ears they have and they hear not. And that speaks to all of us. And I guess our challenge is to really have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, to be aware of what's really going on and to appropriately respond. I guess that's our human challenge.
That is our human challenge, and I think that these days I find myself trying to call myself to an ever greater awareness of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And because that is indeed, to the extent that I can do that, that's where I'm going to experience the holy.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something in the when I first entered the Sisters of Mercy, and actually I guess even growing up, we used to be encouraged to say aspirations, short little snippets of prayer, and to recall God's presence. And there's something really valuable about that. I think we lost kind of the meaning in there, but today I find myself trying to consciously to find ways of consciously stopping and saying, "Oh, and God is here too."
Mm-hmm.
I find that hard. I have to slow down. It doesn't have to be long. It has to be just a second.
Yeah.
But that's a real challenge, and I think it's a challenge to any of us.
Well, they're like in the vernacular, they're like mantras. Christian mantras. That would be a vehicle of grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever speaks to you.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 minutes before we have to end the program. We still would love someone to call in. We could do a lot in 2 minutes, so please call us. The number is on the screen. We've been talking here together with Reverend Lee Udell. We're talking with Sister Lucille Bonvelour, a Sister of Mercy. Call us. We await your call. Life is really always intense, always amazing, always full of surprises. But it's sad when people don't see that.
Well, and I guess it's probably, when you don't see the surprises, but it's in those surprises sometimes that the most profound moments are. Mm-hmm. And kind of, God's in surprise, and God is, God is, no matter where he or she, or by whatever name you call God and the Holy. And it's to catch glimpses. I think it's T.S. Eliot who talks about, glimpses, hints, and guesses. And so that's really all we have, are hints and guesses. And if we can just kind of tap in, catch one of those for just a brief second, it's a wonderful experience.
So look in your life, dear viewers, for hints and glimpses. We've been talking here with Sister Lucille Bonvelour, Sister of Mercy. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
For sharing with us. A lot's going on this morning, and it's been good.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.